parents, not the state, have the right and the duty to choose how to educate their children. Today we're here with Moms for Liberty and many other wonderful organizations who champion the fundamental bond that makes society work and that makes society good. The bond between parents and their students, their children.
That's Education Secretary Linda McMahon teaming up with Moms for Liberty on the steps of the Supreme Court to recognize the 100-year anniversary of the landmark case Pierce versus the Society of Sisters, which they say gave parents more control over their children's education.
And you see them there as an extension of that event. Friday was Moms for Liberty Day at the White House as the conservative group continuing their fight for parental rights and awaiting this decisions in several other key court cases. But back to the century-old Pierce versus the Society of Sisters decision struck down Oregon's law requiring all children to attend public school. McMahon calling it one of the most impactful education-related cases in American history.
Tina Descovich is the co-founder of Moms for Liberty, and she joins us now. Tina, welcome. Thanks so much for coming on. It was a very exciting week for you last week, if I could imagine, with the education secretary there. Can you tell us what it was like?
Yeah, we've had a wonderful month so far. We're celebrating Parental Rights Month as the month of June. We kicked it off with Secretary McMahon there on the Supreme Court steps, as you just said, celebrating Pierce versus the Society of Sisters 100 years. That case was out of Oregon. The nuns wanted to keep their Catholic school open, and the KKK fought against them and wanted to mandate that every child in the state of Oregon must attend public school. And the Supreme Court ruled that children are not mere creatures of the state, but that parents get to decide the education and fundamental upbringing of children. And so we think that's a big parental rights win. We're still in that fight 100 years later. That is why Moms for Liberty is fighting to defend parental rights at all levels of government. And so this week, we also went to the White House for Moms for Liberty Day to continue the celebration. We brought dozens of our chapter leaders from around the country. We are thankful for President Trump and Linda McMahon for how strong they stand with us in defending parental rights.
Yeah, seeing some of that video there. You know, you talk about parents' rights and the choices that parents have to make for their children. And one of those big ones is what their child is exposed to, specifically when they go to school. We hear a lot about books, right, in the classrooms that maybe they don't want their kids being able to see at such a young age. Going off of that, you are awaiting decisions in not one but two other key cases talking about this. This one specifically, Mahmoud versus Taylor case from Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland. So here's what's happening. The district there refusing to allow parents to opt their elementary school children out of being exposed to books containing gender and sexuality concepts. Talk to us about this one.
We have several of our members, including our Montgomery County chapter chair, on that case. You know, it started with parents. The policy in Montgomery County, Maryland schools was that parents could opt out their children of curriculum that violated their religious freedom or their beliefs of how they wanted to raise their children. And so the district started introducing these books to elementary school students, which are wholly inappropriate. If you listen to the debate and discussion at the Supreme Court last month, you will hear Justice Gorsuch and others talking about like street walking women in leather and lace and elementary school student books. And so Montgomery County, what happened there is so many parents were opting their children out and not showing up on the days that these books were being taught, that they said in some classrooms over half the students were missing. And so they rescinded their longstanding policy to allow parents to opt out for the reason that too many parents were opting out. So instead of removing this curriculum and these books that are being shared, they decided to withhold the fundamental right of parents to direct the upbringing of their children. And so now it's landed in the Supreme Court.
You could have avoided this all by just pulling the material and replacing it with something that was less controversial. And yet here we are, again, awaiting this Supreme Court opinion. That's not all, Tina. Of course, waiting for a decision on United States versus Scrimeti, which some of our National Report viewers might sound familiar. This is about the gender-altering procedures for minors. Of course, this is the AG from Tennessee. It happened after the fact that the Biden administration sued over a bill that Tennessee passed in 2023 to ban puberty blockers and hormone therapy as treatments for minors who identify as transgender. Can you tell us about this one, what you're hoping for an outcome here?
children cannot consent to puberty blockers, stopping puberty. They cannot consent to transition surgeries that are irreversible, that will harm them for the remainder of their life. And so many detransitioners are now coming forward who have had their breasts and other healthy body parts cut off while they were a minor, because they were led to believe that that would solve their mental health issues that they were having with their identity. And so we believe it's very important to protect children. What they want to do when they're adults is one thing, but when they're children, we have to protect them. And that's what they've done in Tennessee by signing this bill into law and passing this bill. Again, it's now at the steps of the Supreme Court. We do believe the Supreme Court is going to uphold this law. And I think it's 26 states now have these laws, and we're going to continue to see other states pass laws just like this.
All right. Tina Descovich joining us with that. Tina, good to see you. Thanks for sharing that. We appreciate it.
All right, here with us in studio, NEWSMAX contributor Tom Borelli, who's been listening in. And Tom, as we were working our way through those court cases, it seems like Moms for Liberty sounds more like Moms for Sanity, just based on the content of what's really at stake here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, sometimes you pause, and is this the United States of America, right? Yeah. Funded on liberty. Yeah. Moms for Liberty, great name, Liberty. And there was a recent example in the state of Connecticut, where my wife Tina and I live, where a Republican representative started to read one of the books, and the Democrat said, well, that language is inappropriate to be read at the State House. Well, if it's inappropriate to be read in the State House...
With adults, by the way.
With adults, yeah. Why is it in children's libraries and schools? I mean, logic just doesn't prevail, but thank God for Moms for Liberty and all the parents, you know, getting behind this. And the whole idea of puberty-blocking drugs, as you know, I have a PhD in biochemistry. I mean, you don't play with Mother Nature to that degree. There's no good biologically that's going to come out of that. No,
and getting back to that gender-altering procedures that you touched on there, and not just the puberty blockers, right, but the physical augmentation of a minor. And I hate to use the old the example that continues to be used, but kids cannot get a tattoo. There are very many limited things you can do as a child, but for some reason, this one here is supported, or at least it seems like it's supported by the masses. It's not. Again, we've talked about this. It is not. By any polling that you ever looked at, there is no way that there's a majority of America that does support that, specifically with minors. Yet here you find it being taken up by the Supreme Court of the United States. Yeah, that's what's so surprising, Sean, because you reference polls. I mean, what are these politicians looking at? Normally they go by polls. Right. But from my perspective, it just shows how cultural Marxism has infected our society, that some people are just so radical, they just ignore polling and common sense. I don't think they would do it for their kids, but they want to do it for your kids.
Yeah. Sometimes I think it's the loudest voices that they listen to, well said, right? Again, not the most rational ones. And you know, would you want this for your own family? I always think too, you're a representative, you're there to represent your constituents. Would you be okay with this if your young child came up to you and said, I want to undergo this irreversible surgery in many instances? Tom, when you see, we're looking ahead to the midterms. I like to tap into your political analysis too. Does this continue to be an issue for Democrats? I think it can be, and it should be. I mean, for Republicans, conservatives, or people with plain common sense, what a great issue to run on. Either that, you know, these issues, gender-altering surgeries, hormone-blocking drugs, or whether it's biological men and women's sports, all of it. We've been talking this, a national report now for years. It hasn't, which is shocking in itself. Yeah. You thought it would have been put to bed already. But again, the extreme, to your point, is out, the ones with the loudest voices. But the American people during the last election, they voted. They voted a certain way. They put President Trump back in, got the popular vote, got all the swing states. So for Democrats, keep on going. Suicide, political suicide is a good thing from my perspective. Well, you know, another big headline was the head of the teachers union, Randy Weingarten, stepping down from her position with the DNC. The DNC. Unbelievable, right? Because she doesn't align with some of the leadership. They're putting themselves back together. You don't know what that looks like yet, but there's a lot of shifts that are happening politically. All right, Tom, stay with us.